So that brings some very difficult questions to us that we have to debate, in my opinion. Why do we have so many academic departments? Why do we have so many silos, typically built up axiomatically, so they don't help us to do what we want to do in thinking across? These become axiomatic trade union kibbutzes. And I don't think that's exactly what we need today. I can say, and I must say that IMD is a very small school, but we have abandoned all academic departments. We have none of them anymore. I understand that for a larger school you need to have some, but I don't see why we need so many and cement our organizational structure so heavily if you really believe in eclectic thinking. Second issue, why all these titles? Why do we need all of that? Well, it's happy. We are happy if we get promoted and we become full professors. I remember I thought that was great. But frankly speaking, the issue is that many of our hierarchical title structures, they favor seniority. And that's not right. We got to go for the brains. And we, in running our schools, must make sure that we let the brains do the job and not necessarily build a structure which penalizes brains in favor of seniority. Why do we need tenure? I understand that in many European countries, tenure comes from the government. When I ran this school, I realized that we got tenure as soon as we got hired here. And that was it. We have that in Germany and many other places too. But still, we should ask, is there a way that we can find a somewhat more flexible contract structure so that people are asked to leave if they are no longer contributing? Why should people in our business damage their students and their colleagues for 10, even 20 years if they are no longer able to do the job? I think too much of our practices here with the contracts is, should we say, too performance slow. We need to do something about it. And why do we have so much fixed salary? Why are we treating ourselves as if we were government employees? We should be very well paid. But we should, of course, be paid based on performance, high bonuses. There's no reason why we should not be paid as good as people in McKinsey or IBM or whatever, but it should be performance-based. So these, in my opinion, are questions that we need to debate. And I see from the faces here, you don't like what you hear here. Because this is bad news, very bad news. And seriously, we are at a watershed. And I see many of the leading universities. I've had many discussions now with people at places like Harvard and they are debating these issues right now. So these are fundamental issues we have to handle in one way or another. Let me talk about a few kind of pitfalls or must-dos or whatever that we can discuss. And the first one, I think, maybe a test to ourselves, is that we think about our organization as a curious organization. As I said, it's not curious if you have all of these silos. I remember I worked when I was president here. I was lucky enough to get Tove Strand Gerhardsen, now Tove Strand, as my right-hand person. And she always talked about meeting place. And I thought, what in hell is she talking about? But she was right. The academia should be a meeting place where students and people with various ideas get together and discuss. And it's important that we think about our organization like that and not silo it too much. It has to be that so that we are flexible and learn all the time. Or as Darwin said, it's not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most comfortable regarding change. And I don't think you can do that unless we have that meeting place spirit. Many of our organizations, our schools, tend to be a little bit too static, too conservative. I'm sorry to say. A second issue, and we have already talked about it, is action orientation. Many of our organizations tend to be too bureaucratic. Too much red tape. Let's just get the job done, do it, try it, learn from it. And of course, there will be something that's wrong, but so what? It's better that we learn and go forward rather than, should we say, analyzing ourselves to death, and then 10,000 colleagues come out and cut your heads off if you do something wrong. You don't have that, but we talked about that, Tom, that's the job of the president, to take that kind of crap. But this type of action orientation is absolutely key. We are not here to be bureaucrats. We are here because we are creative people. But we have still created a bureaucratic mess in many of our schools. Am I right? I'm sorry, I think I am. So let's move on to a third issue. Control processes. By God, you have the chief financial officer in your schools, and he or she is absolutely having budgets on his mind, and it's so painful. Because, of course, if you believe in this budget process that they think is so fantastic, the bad news is that when the budget is set, you have to wait perhaps 10, 11 months until you can do a new initiative. The budget drives the initiatives as opposed to the other way. So this is got to be a problem. And, I mentioned this book by Dan Vasella, and he's the CEO of Novartis. The budget was just set, and then his R&D people came to him and said, we can develop a drug which hones in on the cancer-affected cells and leaves the healthy cells alone. And, all of the controllers said, no, you can't do that because the budget is set. You have to wait. And he said, hell with you, let's do it. And in fact, they succeeded and got this Gleevec drug through. But let me ask you, how much is not our research and teaching program activities driven by the budget cycle as opposed to driven by opportunities? I see that. I see no reactions. But I think you agree. It's not good news. We have to keep the controllers under control. Yeah, no, that's okay. Let me just. Sorry that I'm a little rushed. So this is a problem with. That's probably why you yeah. No, that's fair enough. Thank you. I see you though. You seem to agree. Good. Then we have another issue, and that is that as I said earlier, we tend to dislike people who rock the boat, who take initiatives, and of course, if we have this trade union type departmental structure, we expect people to work within their departments, and we simply don't like people who work across. But again, if you really want progress, my feeling is that we need more educational entrepreneurs who work across. And of course, these people need to see opportunities. They also need to mobilize the best team, not only the people from their own department, and they need to be able to inspire people they're working with. They can be young or old, but these people who are doers is so critical if we want to progress in our school. And I have a quote by George Buckley here. He's trying to do this at 3M, a great company, but he said it's so hard. It's so much easier to just take it easy within the silo as opposed to work across. And I think, not to go through this whole thing, but I think that you as senior leaders in your schools, your most important job is to pick and protect and mentor those internal entrepreneurs. It's absolutely critical. And I can tell you that they will be kicked out, they will be cut down unless you protect them. And this, in my opinion, is one of the keys to the success we've had at IMD, that we allow internal entrepreneurs to go full blast. And the job for the people, senior people, is basically to protect them. Because many of us don't like this kind of stuff, Go back to your silo, back to your department. Don't stick your neck out and work across. Let me now get to some speculations regarding the future of the business school, and I'll try to stick to the time, Tom. But, of course, I have already said that I think there are some problems regarding the structure of many of our schools and also many of the universities, and also some problems regarding processes like control processes, planning processes, and departments, titles, tenure, pay incentives, budget. All of that, I think, we probably need to debate and perhaps see some changes if we really want to think about the future of our schools.